So, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Okay, well, I have a presentation, but I think I will answer Romulo's questions first to synthesize our seminar. The first question regarding poverty, multidimensional poverty. I think the great dilemmas that we've been facing is, first of all, to incorporate the complexities of the world and to measure in a potentially more satisfactory way and to complexify this measurement and also the social policies. I think that Brazil has a formula, if you will, which is the middle path, if you will. We get together the public policies, social transfers, and so on and so forth, and we work with them. And I would select a similar path for the next steps. We have to be simple first. We have to start by the simplest way, and then we have to go through to the complex one. We have an intermediary path, which is to project the many dimensions, for example, the income dimension. And after that, we have to incorporate other dimensions. We have some experiences like the Renda Maior program in Rio, which is all about sharing in a more appropriate way the income. We cannot have a deficit, if you will, when it comes to that. We have a model. We have many satisfactory choices here, and we can choose income to work with it. And therefore, we might not only work with a current income perspective, but we can add other factors. We have some experiences that we can work with, and we can go to not only directly to the multidimensional measurements, if you will, indicators, if you will. Even because when we talk about 100 reais, for example, 50 reais, everybody knows what 50 reais is, 100 reais is. The experts and non-expert people, individuals. But we can work with income and other factors, and we can work with a transitional way. We have to be practical. We have to have the card. People have to have the cards of benefits. And here we work, our projects are complex sometimes because they are specific for each individual. The projects are not as before, when we have a lot of conditionalities, if you will. The income is completed and up to a level, if you will. And when discussing about it, and about the question posted by Romulo, we have to talk about getting out from this system, from the first system, and going to the second one, which is not simple at all. Even because of some legal factors and individual factors. So this is my direction. I think we have to design a different path, if you will. And when it comes to dimensional factors, we have eligibility criteria in when it comes to reducing poverty, strict census. And when it comes to the poverty line, we cannot only talk about reducing the prices, the regional prices, and making many upgrades that we have when it comes to multidimensional factors. However, we have a tradition already of deflation, for example, and of work. We have a theorem, but when it comes from getting out from one dimension to and going to the two dimensions, we can use them. But sometimes when we have more than three dimensions, we cannot make a calculus. We have not a simple formula to calculate this, and we have more complex. What is the second question, Romulo? The agenda in general. Well, we have the elements to demonstrate that we are close to eradicate poverty. What is this agenda? Well, first of all, we have to decide, and that's why the seminar is really important. What is the employment, the complete employment of a populace, if you will? Because sometimes we have an employment as well as an employment of population. Poverty has to do with unemployment, and I know that. Work is one of the determining factors of poverty. And some studies points out to 3% of poverty, of overcoming poverty which was overcame. And this is the first issue. We started a research, a feedback research, asking people to self-classify on some categories like poor, middle class, rich. And this was the first question. A great majority tells they're middle class, if you will. But extreme poverty, extreme poor, is almost zero. More or less, the result is approximately 1% when it comes to the subjective answer. Before talking about the future agenda, it would be more symbolic for us to get out a little bit from this FAO and the UN map of hunger, and to change the name of the Ministry of the Social Development to Ministry of Development and Social Assistance for the fight against hunger. However, there are some expensive ideas when it comes to the complexity of the project. And I think we have to, we are in another moment. I think that, as Murray said yesterday, we have a challenge because our poverty line of extreme poverty is low. And in South Africa, there were many public debates about that. And I followed many discussions about poverty. And many people that are here participated in these researches. We discussed in some meetings, we had some discussions about the poverty line. And the committee that was evaluating this could not get to the end of this discussion. And therefore, we wouldn't be able to have proficient objectives and targets, if you will. I think that maybe, well, first of all, we have the first line, which is the extreme poor people, and those who are receiving the benefits of Bolsa Familia plan. And we also have those who think they are not extreme poor, if you will. We have the unified registry, if you will, which is makes life easier with and we saw that sometimes we have to go directly to this registry because it is easier for us to go directly. And all the of our plans are or focused on this registry. And I think it would be interesting for us to give the next step after the registry, which is already used in Pronatec and other plans, and it would be easier for us to use subsidies for the low-income individuals, which is the Salário Família program is already doing that, and so on and so forth. And maybe this could be the next stage, which is to formally work on income. And maybe the example, the French minimum wage rules, like for example, having the minimal education to graduate and so on and so forth, it would be useful. These tools would be useful. And when it comes to social protection and work, something that differentiates Brazil and Latin America, even what Murray reported, is the unemployment factor. We had now the rate of unemployment here in Brazil for the last month, for October. And we are in a new level, if you will. And we are having more formalization of employees. So every year more, we have 2% more formalized employees in Brazil. So I think this is a good aspect. And I'd like to have a different perspective when it comes to the income factor in Brazil, which is not problematic, but we have to understand it better. When it comes to the basis of employment in Brazil, the formal employment is not growing. The 40%, which is the lowest 40%, the income grows more than in other segments. But when it comes to the 5% to the 5% of the poorest population, it doesn't grow more. And that's why we have to focus on this. And I think what concerns the agenda for two specific points is clear nowadays. We have already some experiences of the Bolsa Família program impact in the individuals, and we have been having some individuals coming out of poverty because of this program. And another good news here is that we will have the third round of evaluation of those programs, and children that are in kindergarten are well off, because on top of kindergarten helping them out with the cognitive factors, it helps as well when it comes to women's income, because they help also with cash benefits and so on and so forth, which is also one of the tools we use to tackle some of our targets. Women are some of our targets, if you will. And Bolsa Família, as other programs, is a wise tool because it uses women, the mother, as a factor of change. Another thing that concerns me sometimes, and I think we have to pay attention to this, is the fact that when the family doesn't have a mother, and when the kid doesn't live with a mother, which is very common, it is less easy to for the kids to be in this program, inserted in this program, and that's why the mother is a key actor, plays a major role when it comes to those programs. Now, the great advantage of this is that, and there is even a statement that we use when it comes to Brazil without extreme poverty program, is that we have to address extreme poor first. I think what we do have today is a structure of program designing that is pretty clear. Even because we have a unified structure, and because of that, the upgrade of the programs happens in weeks. I'm not talking about 48 weeks. I'm talking about 12 weeks. I'm talking about 10 weeks, which can be dangerous sometimes. But I think that for our subnational experience, this is pretty interesting. And when it comes to kindergarten, when it comes to the first childhood, I think municipalities have to address those factors as well. We have a new social federalism here, where municipalities are using the Bolsa Família program to trace the very basis of the household nowadays. And they're even launching new first childhood programs. And when we look to young people and young individuals, we see a great impact because of Bolsa Família program. They are really impacted, strongly impacted, mainly the age averaging 6 to 12 years of age. And I think this has to do with the state. The state is responsible for this factor, for this point, because they are the ones responsible for unemployment programs and for the violence programs and other young individual issues. And I think this is the state is responsible for these factors. We have two borders then, the state one and the federal one. Bolsa Família program has to address those two factors. The beginning of the year, of the life, the childhood, the very childhood, and the young individuals as well. And Bolsa Família program has done a lot when it comes to income and when it comes to employment. The poor's income has been growing more than the other categories, the other levels. And that's it. Thank you.